I recently read Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. Fogg has discovered the universal formula for human behavior. B equals MAP. Behavior equals motivation plus ability plus prompt. This formula says that if you're trying to develop a new habit, like reading a book every night before bed, you'll only pick up a book and start reading it tonight if your motivation, your energy to read, matches the ability required to read, the time it takes to hit your daily reading goal, when the prompt to read is present. That is, when you see the book on your nightstand before you go to bed. Author and behavioral scientist BJ Fogg has found a way to hack the universal behavior model so that you and I can consistently perform a desired behavior, like reading before bed, and make huge changes in our lives. The hack is called the Tiny Habits method, and it involves 3 parts. Part 1, shrink the behavior. To understand how motivation and ability interact with one another, Fogg provides the following chart with the action line. The action line says that if a task is too hard, then you need high levels of motivation to rise above the action line and complete the task. Rescuing your child from a burning building is a hard thing to do, but a high motivation to rescue your child puts you above the action line and compels you to run into the fire. Conversely, if a task is easy to do, you need very little motivation to rise above the action line and complete the task. Brushing your teeth is easy to do, so it doesn't matter if you're exhausted just before bed when you're reminded to brush your teeth. You do it anyways. Relying on motivation to be there each time you want to execute a habit is a foolish strategy. That's why BJ Fogg suggests shrinking every new habit to the tiniest possible version so that very little motivation is needed to do it. You can find the tiniest version of your desired habit by either reducing the quantity or doing just the first step. For example, the tiniest version of a 60-minute meditation practice is being mindful of just one breath. The tiniest version of a daily planning routine is writing down one to-do item on an index card and putting it in your pocket. Your goal is to find a behavior that is easy to do in 30 seconds or less. Right now, think of a habit you want to form and then list a few tiny habits you could try out. For example, if you aspire to work out more, the tiniest workout you could perform might be 1 push-up or 1 squat or 1 yoga pose or 1 jumping jack. Experiment with 1 or 2 tiny behaviors and see which one feels like a small win. Different behaviors impact people in different ways. Once you've found the tiniest habit with the biggest impact, it's time for part 2 of the Tiny Habit Method. Identify an action prompt. There are 3 types of habit prompts, things that remind you to do your habit. There's external prompts, phone notifications or alarms, internal prompts, thoughts and emotions that remind you to act, and action prompts. The completion of one behavior reminds you to start the next behavior. Most people use external prompts or internal prompts to trigger a new habit, and that's why most people fail to develop a new habit. External and internal prompts are too easy to ignore. You can hit snooze on an alarm or ignore a feeling. But more importantly, external and internal prompts are disruptive and demotivating. If an alarm goes off reminding you to take out the garbage while you're watching a movie, you'll probably get angry because you need to pause the movie, get out of your relaxing chair, and put your shoes on to go outside. Contrast that to an action prompt that uses the completion of one behavior to trigger a new behavior. If you use the end of cleaning your kitchen countertops as the prompt to take out the garbage, you can leverage the momentum you already have from being on your feet and walking around the kitchen to then walking outside. That momentum is just enough motivation to get you over the action curve. And since tiny habits can be completed in 30 seconds or less, you'll have many action prompts at your disposal because you can fit tiny habits after almost any routine throughout the day. For example, you can execute a 1-breath meditation habit after you check your phone or pick up the TV remote or turn off a light or wash your hands after using the bathroom. Here are a few action prompts that BJ Fogg uses. After I start my morning coffee, I will set out my vitamins. After I walk in the door from work, I will get out my gym clothes. After I sit down on the train, I will open my sketchbook. After I put my head on my pillow, I will think of one good thing. Now go back to your tiny habit and set up an action prompt by completing the sentence, after I blank I will blank. And finally, part 3 of the tiny habits method is to grow your habit with some shine. Developing a habit is like growing a small tree. You start with something tiny, and you nurture it until it starts to take root in your life and feels natural. Then, if you continue to nurture your habit with some shine, that habit will naturally grow into something huge. Your sentence a day habit might grow into a 3 chapters a day habit. Shine is a term that BJ Fogg created to explain the feeling you get after an accomplishment. The closest thing in the English language is authentic pride. To get an idea of what shine feels like, imagine the following. You've just gone through 3 rounds of intense interviews for a job you really want at a company you really like. You wait and wait for the email from the hiring manager. And then finally, a week later, you see an email in your inbox from the hiring manager. You open it and read, "Congratulations, we've awarded you the position." What does your celebration look like and feel like? Or imagine you've worked hard on a school project and your favorite teacher walks up to you and puts his or her hand on your shoulder and says, "Great job." How do you celebrate in that moment? The feeling you experience after either of these visualizations is the same feeling you must generate after executing a tiny habit. Now, it may sound ridiculous to feel pride and success after just one push-up or flossing just one tooth. But based on BJ Fogg's extensive habit research, learning to celebrate after a tiny win is the most critical component of habit development. Think of yourself as part dog trainer and part dog. Your inner dog performs the habit, and your inner dog trainer chooses to give the dog a treat. Most of the time, we hold back those treats because we think we should only celebrate huge successes. But that's a huge mistake. Fogg says, when you feel successful at something, even if it's tiny, your confidence grows quickly, and your motivation increases to do that habit again and perform related behaviors. I call this success momentum. Surprisingly enough, this gets created by the frequency of your successes, not by the size. When you give yourself a steady dose of shine after doing the tiniest version of a habit, your motivation will steadily grow, which will allow you to take on more difficulty while still remaining above the action curve. This is how you grow your habit from 1 push-up a day to 5 to 10 to 20. Fogg says, you can resist learning to celebrate, but be aware that you're choosing not to be as good as you could be at creating habits. For most people, the effort of learning to celebrate is a small price to pay for becoming a habit ninja. In the end, use BJ Fogg's tiny habits method to hack your own behavior and get yourself to reliably execute a habit. First, shrink a new habit to the tiniest version, an easy behavior you can complete in 30 seconds or less. And second, use an action prompt to trigger your tiny habit so you start your habit with momentum. And third, always celebrate the completion of a tiny habit. The more you celebrate, the faster you'll be able to grow your habit. It's important to remember the way to sustain a habit is to give yourself the flexibility to always do more, but permission to always go back to the tiniest behavior. BJ Fogg says, while small might not be sexy, it is successful and sustainable. That was the core message that I gathered from Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. Fogg is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to behavior change. I highly recommend this book. If you would like a 1-page PDF summary of insights that I gathered from this book, just click the link below and I'd be happy to email it to you. If you already subscribe to the free Productivity Game email newsletter, this PDF is sitting in your inbox. If you like this video, please share it. And as always, thanks for watching and have yourself a productive week.